Whoever would make war and judge must be judged. Because if you come against the enemies of God because of their wickedness and their rebellion, and there's wickedness and rebellion in you, you know what's going to happen? You're going to call down the guns on yourself. And that's practical. That's not theoretical. That's what happens. Because with what measure you meet, it's meted out to you again. And you go and someone comes and they says, you know, I've really got a spirit of avarice and of greed. And you're all set to, go after this thing. And the devil says to you, you've got a spirit of avarice and greed. I do? Yeah. What are you going to do now? This is spiritual warfare. I was telling you the other day about an incident that happened in Rochester, New York, where there was a man who had a real ministry of deliverance. And what was the foolishness that he said? Georgie Porgy. Well, he was very stout and liked to eat a lot after the service, I guess. Whatever he did made him stout. Well, they'd gone through some foolishness, and they were talking about Georgie Porgy. His name was George, and he was stout, and they're all giggling and having a wonderful time, as Christians are wont to do. So they brought in someone that needed deliverance and bound with devils. And they brought them in before this man of God. He is famous in that area, had a tremendous ministry of miracles and deliverance and healing. So they're all set to really hunker down and get after that thing and cast it out. And the devil said, Georgie Porgy. You think he got cast out? No, he didn't get cast out. Because spiritual warfare takes a person who is finely tuned. They had spent a time preceding deliverance in talk. And they were at the mercy of the enemy. That's why we encourage in this church, when you can talk yourself right out of your molars after the service, after the battle. But when you come in here, it's not a time to gossip, because it weakens you. It would be just at that moment when God has a word for someone or a help or a deliverance or something that you can pray or minister or do something. There's more ways of doing things than just going up and telling a person. Sometimes it's best to just pray. Or you don't know, God might have a word for you or a decision or an answer to one of your own prayers. And here you are blabbing. All the steam's going out of the boiler. It isn't turning any wheels. It's all being dissipated. And then you come in expecting the pastor to lift you up. Well, what if the pastor spends his time before the service giggling, foolish, visiting, having a wonderful time, his mind on half a dozen things, the business of the day, and then he says, oh, yeah, 7:30, and he rushes out here and he looks at you, and you've been giggling and having fellowship and fooling around. That's a great preparation for warfare. That's just wonderful. You fall flat on your face because nobody knows what God's will is. That's like a soldier that doesn't post a guard. He ends up with a scalp on somebody's totem pole. You come into the house of God. You come into the place of deliverance, of worship, of warfare. You hit the Lord. You get your Bible. You get your prayer going. Be a sourpuss. Pray. Seek the Lord. It's not the time to visit. It's not the time for hilarity. It's a time for warfare. Do you believe that? These are things we've got to learn. The enemy is constantly accusing you before the Father. And he is constantly, bringing up, look at them there, Your word says, let not foolish talking proceed out of your mouth. Listen to them. And they're going to contest with me. They are sinning against you, God. They are sinning against you. And you must judge them. You're laying this out. You think that he is resting? He is watching for the chink in your armor. Watching. He does not rest. There's no rest in him. He's driven with lust and violence and pride. And he's just like a lion, pacing, watching those that are a threat to his kingdom, looking for the configuration of the soul, to watch for that element in that person, assigning high-ranking angels to elders that are troublesome to him, beings of great preeminence in heaven and great experience and great age. He says, that one's a threat. There's a threat coming up. See that it doesn't become a threat. You don't want to be a member of the devil's empire because they're rough on one another. You see, it's your life for his. See that you're successful. And here you are. Oh, the deliverers of the earth. The ones that are going to put an end to Satan's empire. A lot of brain in their head, chattering like schoolgirls. Can you bear it? People who've got things to learn about war. We're going into war. It's not a Mickey Mouse war. It's a war where people get hurt and deluded and destroyed.